Bizarre Reality Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones. What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep conversational exploration into the fringes of social norms. I'm the one they call Shane, aka the original Shane Squatch, and today for you guys, I sit down with my good friend and fellow cryptid enthusiast, John Knight, and together we discuss the mysterious world of cryptids and the unexplained, from our shared experiences in the woods to fascinating thoughts into the philosophy of dimensions. This conversation is sure to spark your curiosity, whether you're a seasoned believer or just curious. Join us as we explore stories that challenge the boundaries of reality and the fabric of existence. But before we get into this fascinating conversation, for anybody that may not have noticed, I did end up taking a little bit of time off for the holidays, but I am back and I'm ready to gun it forward into 2026. I hope that everybody ended up having a great holiday, whether it was Christmas or whatever you guys happen to celebrate. And of course, I hope you guys had a happy new year. And I'm hoping you guys are ready to lunge into this new year with positive intentions, because that's what I'm trying to do for the show. I'm going to bring a lot of new things into the show as far as format and a lot of new stuff going on in 2026. I've been sitting for a while where, I've been doing the show, but I haven't fully felt truly inspired by the show in a while. So I'm going to be doing some new things to truly start feeling inspired by the show again and hopefully start bringing you guys some even better content. So hopefully you guys will stick with me and we'll have a little bit of a transition into the new age of Inquiries of Our Reality. But for anybody that has enjoyed a lot of the stuff that we have been doing, of course, you guys can catch the next live episode of Bizarre Inquiries on February 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over in the usual place, the Bizarre Reality Media YouTube channel. And if anybody has any questions, clips, or articles that they would like to submit for that, make sure you guys get it to us before then. But if not, of course, we will pass it on to the next show. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, sharing their experiences or encounters, or contacting me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or you guys could also email me at my other email, which is bizarrerealitymedia@outlook.com, or you guys could always call or text the Bizarre Reality Media hotline 24/7, and that number is 313-364-1551. And if you happen to miss that or the emails, they are available down in the show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome to the show, friend, fellow Michigander, podcaster, and cryptid experiencer, John Knight. How's it going today, man?
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Not too bad. Absolute pleasure to finally get you on the show after talking as friends, I guess, behind the scenes for the past year and a half. I originally was trying to start up a cryptid investigation team, and unfortunately, like a lot of good ideas that I have, not much ends up happening with it. But unfortunately enough, you were one of the people that ended up hitting me up about it, and luckily it started a friendship. So here we are now, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't believe it's been a year and a half since we've been talking.
Say it. Unfortunately, we had some stuff happen in the middle where we were going to get together. You had some stuff going on in your life. We never ended up getting back around to it. But luckily, came across your number, and I was like, hey, I should hit that guy up. It's been too long.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad you did, man. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely, man. And actually getting to talk on the show, because usually it was just through text, so it's always a little bit different when it's screen to screen or face to face. So I'm looking forward to actually hearing about your experiences instead of, quickly paraphrasing them through text, as, a lot of our conversations happen to be. So
absolutely. So For for everyone listening who doesn't know, my name is John Knight from the West Michigan area, where you're from the Eastern Michigan.
Complete opposite sides of the state.
Yep. So, people who are watching or anything, we do the whole hand thing. I'm over here, he's over here. So, but yeah, man, I started a podcast this year, so I'm on episode 2. So if anyone wants to go check it out, it's Mysteries in the Timber. It goes live every other Tuesday. So it's we just started it. It's all about the paranormal and missing people and everything like that happens, mostly focused around hunters. And then besides that, I also co-host a podcast that comes out every Tuesday and Sunday, and it's called Whitetail Advantage, where we just talk about hunting. So,
say two opposite ends of hunting, I guess, right? You got the paranormal side of hunting, and then you got the normal side of hunting.
Absolutely, yeah. I figure if I'm going to be in the woods hunting, I might as well be hunting the other thing as well. Like if I'm looking for deer, I'll keep an eye open for squatch. I mean, see what's around,
It's funny how that happens, that I feel like there's a lot of hunters out there that end up starting a hunting podcast, and then it quickly ends up turning into they have a couple random episodes where somebody saw something weird in the woods, and then, yeah, it's still a hunting podcast, but a lot of it ends up turning into a lot of this creature stuff out in the woods, because a lot of it seems to go hand in hand. I know a group of coon hunters down in South Carolina, they started off as a hunting podcast just talking about, coon hunting, and quickly it turned into a paranormal podcast talking about coon hunters who have had weird experiences, so...
Oh, absolutely. And whenever we have guests on the show, I always lean into it where I'm like, hey, you don't necessarily have to believe in Bigfoot or anything like that or Dogman, but have you ever had anything weird happen to you in the woods? And so many hunters are like, oh yeah, I saw this weird bear one time, and then they just think nothing of it. Or like one of the guys I was talking to, he's like, yeah, we were walking out of the mountains, and it kept feeling like someone was pacing us out. Like it was really weird. We felt uncomfortable, but yeah, that was it. And then you start talking to more and more, and they're like, you did have an experience, but they're like, no, it was just a weird looking bear, or it was something else. They're so quick to just brush it off.
It's funny how many of those guys too will, have weird little experiences throughout their whole life, and then they'll have that one event that they can't deny anymore. Like they'll straight up see a Sasquatch. Then all of a sudden they start putting 2 and 2 together, and they're like, hey, that one time I was in the woods and I had a random rock thrown at me and I thought it came from a squirrel. And that one weird time that I saw this tree that just got knocked over, and I just figured, maybe it was just rotting on the inside and the perfect bit of wind hit it or something. Like, it's funny. It's like you parallel all this stuff, and a lot of the time it's like your mind rationalizes it quickly enough that you don't even end up thinking twice about it. So I'm convinced that a lot of these hunters out here are regularly having experiences, but if it's Sasquatch, for example, everybody obviously knows how elusive Sasquatch is. So if you're not actually actively thinking about it or looking for it, who knows how often you might actually walk past these things. I mean, even simply just the concept of if something's not moving, a lot of the time your eye doesn't catch it. So there could be a Sasquatch 20 feet off the path, just standing really, really still next to a tree. And if it doesn't move or twitch, you'll walk right past and not even happen to catch it or even see it. I'm convinced people are regularly having experiences and they just rationalize them out, don't think about them, and then it just takes a big event to be like, whoa, shit, maybe there was something in this area the whole time.
Oh, the best example of that is at the very end of Harry and the Hendersons, when they're releasing Harry back in the mountains, and he turns off and walks off, and then all of a sudden they just stand up. And I've watched that scene so many times because I'm like, there's no way that they were there the whole time, but they were. Like, you can see them crunched down and hidden, and then they all just stand up, and you're like, man. But that was that movie when it came out in, the mid 80s, I think. And I was just maybe 7 or 8 when I first saw that. But that is the movie that got me hooked on Bigfoot. And I feel like that movie hooked a lot of people in my age, into the Bigfoot and Sasquatch type hunting and just background and everything else.
I was actually surprised that obviously the movie takes a lot of liberties, but there's actually a lot of stuff that actually like parallels pretty well. And honestly, I'm a big fan of Harry and the Hendersons. I think I posted it semi recently. I ended up getting a pack of Harry and the Hendersons cards from like 1989 or something like that that still has the bubble gum in it. So I got that hidden back here. I got this like little like Pez machine looking head thing from like Harry and the Hendersons and stuff. But yeah, dude, that's one of those ones that it's I don't even want to say it's like spoofy or anything cheesy, but it kind of like leads into this like optimism of Sasquatch, of course, because there's a lot of people that kind of got into the Sasquatch thing because of like, Boggy Creek, for example, which is like the horror motif of Sasquatch. Oh, yeah. But it seems like a lot more of these guys that are like, they really want to get out there and they think that, it brings in like a totally different motif of Sasquatch, rather than like being scared of this monster out in the woods. It kind of makes you a little bit less scared of this monster out in the woods, but obviously, you should always go at this stuff with some bit of precaution, but I don't know. It kind of brings in like a different light of Sasquatch. It kind of makes it more like an optimistic adventure to go out and find Sasquatch rather than like oh no, I don't want to come across one of those things like the Boggy Creek people came into it with.
Oh, absolutely. Kind of like what Disney does with all the animals in their movies. They make them look all cute and cuddly, so that way you attach, emotion to them. And then you see a deer in the wild, and first, every time I see a deer, I'm like, oh, it's Bambi. It's just, we're predetermined to know that now. And I think, Harry and the Hendersons, they gave them like that friendly motif, like you were saying, like, hey, it's not a giant scary monster out there. And I think that's got a lot of people looking like, hey, let's go try to find this thing.
That almost kind of makes you wonder, going into like the whole conspiracy of Harry and the Hendersons, that there was actually some government funding that went into that movie, which has always kind of put this little like grain of doubt in the back of my mind as far as like what the motivation behind the movie potentially was. But if there is government funding that went into that movie and they kind of promote this idea of like the nice friendly Sasquatch, I wonder if it kind of like supports the conspiracy of like the whole like leave Sasquatch alone, they're not going to hurt you. Like it was almost like a propaganda film at the time because they maybe knew that people were starting to kind of come across Sasquatch and people were starting to really like congregate and actually try to figure stuff out. So one, if they make this Hollywood movie, they're able to like make it so that if people see it, they can almost like normalize it and make it so that people are more prone to walk away instead of like chase it like it's a scary monster. And then on the other side, you're also putting that fictional idea, I guess you could say, of like a comical Sasquatch in people's minds. So then if somebody does have a Sasquatch experience and they go and they say, oh, I had this experience, now since this is fresh in people's minds, they're going to go, oh, like in Harry and the Hendersons, and they're instantly going to rationalize it with fiction. Like I feel like that movie played multiple roles within like the whole motif of Sasquatch. And as much as I love the movie, don't get me wrong, I feel like there's some other agendas behind it just because of the government funding behind it. Because why else would the government fund that movie? Like that's so weird. Not saying they funded all of it, but there was a little bit of funding as far as government goes with that movie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, love it or hate it, Harry and the Hendersons is one of those movies where, like you said, you can see the pros and cons of both. You can see what the government is trying to do, and then you can kind of see like, okay, they're trying to make it where, if it, like you were saying, if you do see one, you're going to relate to it as a friendly, non-threatening thing. It could be Bigfoot, whatever. And then it's funny because now we have so many more reports of just like Bigfoot attacks, Dogman attacks, all this other crazy stuff. And it's, I don't know, man. It's pretty wild.
I mean, even the Dogman stuff, people are talking about that as like a modern thing, but I've been saying on the show for a while, I think people have been encountering Dogman as long as they've been encountering Sasquatch. It's just, they didn't have that defined definition, because when people are first encountering Sasquatch, they didn't even know what to call that thing. But if they see this other thing that's similar to it, they're going to call both of those things the same thing. But if you go back to some of these old reports, they talk about the more like baboon-looking face or like the more muzzled-looking nose to some of these things. So I feel like people have been encountering Dogman just as long as Sasquatch. It's just a matter of now we're able to kind of categorize them a little bit better because people are more open to talking about their experiences, and they can also say like, that is a Sasquatch, this is something else that looks like a Sasquatch, because we now know what this image of Sasquatch looks like.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a perfect leeway into why I had originally ended up hitting you up. I actually did a show relatively recently with Drewski from Cryptid Warfare, and he was talking about how you guys had met up and you had talked about some of your experiences. And obviously, I knew that you had some experiences considering we were going to meet up and try to do this investigation team, which we could still definitely go out and do by ourselves, by the way. May I throw that in there? But I'd love to get into some of your experiences, man, because I've heard you had some crazy ones out there, man.
Yeah. So growing up, watching, like I said, Harry and the Hendersons, seeing the Patty video, I've just always been huge into Bigfoot. I've gone out into the woods. Last year was the first year I went out to Oregon, just hiking, wanting to see something, right? I'm a believer of Bigfoot, but I'm not a knower. I haven't seen anything indefinite yet, but I've always wanted to, I've always gone out looking for it. And I've always been huge into like the paranormal as well. Growing up, I never seen any of that stuff. I believed in it, but I never seen it. So growing up, I graduated high school. I joined the Army shortly after high school. I deployed to Baghdad, and we were stationed out in Abu Ghraib, which is this famous prison out in Iraq. And I get in there and I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. This is my first deployment. I'm overseas. This is a prison that's just notorious for horrible, horrible things that's happened. And it was like walking in there, as soon as you hit that prison, because we had to stay in prison cells, and we just basically put plywood around it, painted it, and that was it, Try to make it look less of a dungeon. But just walking in there, you get this heavy feeling. And you're like, all right, it's not right, but, we're running operations out of here. We're doing all of this stuff. And
is the entire building inactive, or is part of it still actually used as like a prison, by the way?
No, so it was a bunch of tiny outposts, and it was still a prison to this day. Well, I don't know about today, but when we were out there, it was still being used as a prison. But every night, like, you'd hear people walking and there'd be no one around. You'd have guards out walking, you'd have like your security element, but you'd hear people walking in your room, noises all the time. And it was always like we were talking about earlier, where it's like you try to just chalk everything up to a coincidence. And then you have that one final breaking moment where you're like, okay, this isn't cool anymore. And for me, it was, I had just bought a laptop and I had it sent over, and I'm on it and I pop it open. I have the night off. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to throw in a movie, watch it. And as soon as I set the computer up on my bunk, I get ready to go up there and watch it, and my computer just shoots off the bed and into the ground. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, what just happened? And it was another, like, one of those, oh, it must have been something. So I picked it up and I put it back on there, and just shoots off again. And I was like, nope, I am not doing this. And stuff like that would happen to everybody all the time. And as we were talking about it, you'd have people who would because we had bunk bed style beds, and you'd have someone laying on the top bunk, and the bunk would just start almost like rocking back and forth. And they'd be like, hey, quit, so-and-so quit kicking the bed. And you're like, dude, there's no one underneath it. And you'd jump off and the mattress would still be flipping, and then it would just stop. Like, that place was so eerie. Like, we would do like 3 week, I think it was 3-week rotations out of there. And everyone was so ready to go home at the end of like the first week.
Dude, talk about a perfect storm, though. You have one ancient land that who knows what has happened on that land. On top of that, you have the prison which, I mean,
Yeah.
residual hauntings galore, because think about just people constantly walking around in circles in a cell or constantly being in the same cell every single day. Like, that's just locking things into those places in time forever. Not to mention all of the evil people that have probably passed through there or had traumatic experiences through there that are, you know, intelligent hauntings. Like, that's just like one of those perfect storm type of locations. And considering it's in the Middle East too, who knows what type of material the building could potentially be made out of that could be harnessing and holding things in too.
Yeah, and it was like when we were over there, I mean, we heard stories of what would happen in the prison, and it was just horrible. And you would go into like different outbuildings, and you could see bullet holes just lining everything. So you know horrible things are happening in there. And I mean, you'd see orbs all the time, and it wouldn't be like, you know, through a picture or anything. You would see just like a light shoot across, and you're like, yeah, I'm not going in that area. I mean, the entire base, like everybody knew, but you had like your tiers that would talk about it. Like the lower enlisted would talk about it over here. Then you'd have the higher enlisted, and the officers, they would say, you know, we had some weird stuff happen. And then every once in a while you'd get cross communication. You'd be like, hey, we know the LT witnessed this stuff too. So it was, everyone experienced it. It wasn't just the guys in that room. It was the entire prison.
Dude, I'm sure that entire pocket area, it's just so much residual energy that's sitting there that for miles, I'm sure that you probably have some weird paranormal activity that happens. Not to mention the fact that I'm assuming the whole area is surrounded by desert, and desert seems to be this liminal space anyway. So again, it's just miles and miles of just ancient land that's just harnessing ancient secrets that nobody could possibly even imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, I loved history, and I grew up watching like Ancient Aliens and all of that stuff. And during one of my deployments, we were running operations out of this base, and the Euphrates was right basically in the back of the camp we were at. And we were doing missions out of there. And my buddy, he was from Oregon, and he was a giant hippie, and we'd always make fun of him for it, you know. And he's like, hey, come with me. And we're like, what's up? And he walks down to the river and just like runs his hand in it. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, this river has been written about in every single Bible, it's in the Quran, it's in the Bible, it's in everything. Like, this is the river of life. It's the Euphrates. He's like, I've never thought I'd ever be able to touch it. And he's just like going on about it. And I'm like, man, I never realized. So of course I had to bend down and touch it. And I was like, yeah, it's no big deal. It's water. But then like looking back, I mean, you have Mesopotamia the Euphrates ran right into that. And like you were saying, there's so much rich history, and the Anunnaki came from there. We had the Baghdad battery that was found right outside of where we were working at. And it's a pretty historic site, and there's all sorts of weird, strange things that happen.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show. I gotta ask, and hopefully this isn't too big of a sidetrack. Maybe it will be, who knows? But considering that you were a soldier that was in the Middle East, this is always one of my biggest fascinations, and I always love trying to come across these stories. I know that they're usually repressed. A lot of the times they turn into whispers, but was there any stories that came across the base of anybody seeing anything giant-like in the middle of the desert or anything, for example?
Oh, so like the Kandahar Giant.
Yes, and I found a couple other different stories, actually. Nick from Tales from the Grid Square, he's actually cataloged a couple of different giant stories from the Middle East, but it always seems to be this common motif that they're these giant, six-fingered, red-haired, two rows of teeth giants. But yeah, if you've come across any of those stories on the base, dude, I'd love to hear it.
So in Iraq, we had reports of, we had purple-haired. Like, we had local nationals out there with like a dark, almost reddish purplish hair, and they were substantially taller than most of the Middle Easterns. And so we'd always talk about that, and that was our, we'd joke around later about that was our Kandahar Giants. But later on, when I was in Afghanistan, there's a lot of crazy things there. Not so much like
I mean, even those guys, who knows? They could have even shared some bloodline. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, absolutely.
they could only be like 10%, but I mean, there might be some giant blood in them, man.
Yeah, and what's crazy is going to Iraq and just talking to some of the senior elders and stuff, the Muhtars that are out there, and just hearing their history and being like, hey, you know, because growing up, I was huge into hunting. So I'm like, hey, and you try to talk to people on subjects that you can relate to. So I'm like, hey, you know, you guys ever hunt out here? What do you hunt? Blah, blah, blah. What do you like to do? And all the old people would talk about like all the like, oh yeah, we used to have lions out here and tigers and all the time. And then we had, you know, these areas that we never went to because we were always told not to. And it was always some, you know, there's either giants or there's some mythical thing there. And they would hear that and they just never went. And when I was in Afghanistan, one of the, you know, we were doing an overwatch on a village one night, and we had known that this area was, yeah, people had seen strange things in it, like around this town or this little village. And so we were sitting up there, we were pulling an overwatch on this village. We had 100% security set up, and we were just, you know, shooting the breeze, just joking around while we're, you know, watching this town at night. And one of my buddies brought up that movie, The Fourth Kind. You've seen that, right?
Yeah, the one with the owls.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So that movie scared the hell out of me. I mean, that movie was terrifying to me. But
dude, when that one first came out, that was a really, really good, solid alien flick, especially with that like high-pitched like buzzing every single time they'd show the owls, dude. It was kind of like sinister. Like, it wasn't overall that scary, but it just kind of hit a weird note in the back of your mind, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And so there's that scene where the UFO is flying over the house and the camera's all blinking in and out and stuff like that. Well, when we were in Afghanistan, my buddy started talking about that movie, and I had just seen it. So we were talking about it, and we were talking about that scene. And as soon as we started talking about it, we went from like watching this village to like looking up in the sky and just checking it out, you know, because I mean, there's no light pollution. It's just beautiful, clear skies there. The country's gorgeous. It's just, you know, the war going on kind of sucked.
Constantly dangerous, always. I mean, even if you guys aren't there, there's just always conflict over there anyways. Yeah. It's just...
It's Afghanistan. People are going to fight regardless.
They've been at war for thousands of years in some way, shape, or form.
Complete side note, you know, I'm a huge movie buff, and one night we were getting ready to go out on a mission, and I looked at my team leader, and I was like, hey, you know we're not going to win this, right? He was like, what do you mean? Like, that's the horrible motto to have. I'm like, no, look at it. In Rambo 3, Rambo trained the Mujahideen, which later became the Taliban. I'm like, we're lost. Like, Rambo taught these dudes. And everyone was just laughing on that one.
Gotta look out for Rambo. He's gonna sneak up on you.
Absolutely. But no, so in Afghanistan, we were overwatching this village, and we were talking about that movie, The Fourth Kind. And all of a sudden you start looking up and you start, you know, you almost start like wanting to see something. And then it's like you look up, and me and my buddy at the same time, we just saw this like bright light. It looked like a star, and it would just like move over, and then it would stop. And we're watching it, and we're both calling out what we're seeing, and we're seeing the same thing. And it's just like moving back and forth, and it would go up and then come down. And we're like, what is this? And he's on the radio trying to see if we have any like air support or air assets or ISR or drones or anything like that flying. And he's like, we have nothing. So we're like sitting there watching it. And this is probably 2 a.m. And it would like go from over, you know, it'd be over in the northeast, and then it would shoot over to the southwest, and it would just go all over the place. And we're constantly watching. We're like, what the hell is that? And sun's coming up, and it just disappears. And never seen anything like it since. Never had another experience like that. But it just, me and my buddy, we've still talked about it to this day. And we're like, what do you think it was? And it's like, I have no idea.
You guys are putting thought and intention in, and both of you guys ended up manifesting that thing or calling it in without even trying to.
And we've talked about that too. It's like, dude, what if that was it? What if we were just on the same wavelength and just manifested this thing up there, and we're both just able to see it?
Dude, talk about like a consciousness beacon too. If you're like in the middle of the desert in like Afghanistan, I mean, obviously there's not a lot of people around. So if you're out there and you're thinking with intention, I mean, talk about like an antenna, you know, like there's very minimal things around. So that's just like a straight beacon up to these things if they are potentially coming when people think or, you know, manifest these things thinking about them, which seems to be a common thing that, you know, you got the people in the middle of the desert that are able to, you know, manifest these things whenever they want to. There was a guy who recently somehow did it on camera for the news. I don't know what the deal is with that, but clearly there's something to it. And there's this connection with them and consciousness and being able to, I guess, telepathically communicate with us.
Oh yeah. Chris Bledsoe? He has, have you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like watching his videos and stuff like that and listening to the podcast he's in and how he can just like almost call and manifest it up just like that. Like it's unbelievable. And it's like, yeah, are you that in tune with it? Are you on a different wavelength? Like what is going on?
Dude, I've been like really, really into this like 4-dimensional reality concept lately. I read this book called Flatland, and it like totally just kind of like opened up this new perspective for me in a lot of this stuff. And it talks about basically, I know I've talked about this a few times on the show, but I'll try to like paraphrase it as much as I can. So anyways, it's like from the perspective of like a 2-dimensional square, and he has this 3-dimensional sphere that like comes into his reality and starts trying to explain 3-dimensional reality to him in a 2D reality. And they basically talk about how this 3rd-dimensional reality just came in from the side, how he can see from the inside of them. And then it kind of expands back even further out, saying that like if there is a 5th reality that exists, it would have to be from something that comes from inside, because it appears that as you go up realities, you're able to see the inside of the reality below. And this is a weird thing to kind of comprehend because we're, you know, 3rd reality, kind of hard trying to understand like a 4th-dimensional reality concept. Oh, yeah. But if that is the case, that there are like inside and they're basically able to see us from this other viewpoint that we're not able to see, then if somebody thinks about them, it makes sense that they can basically just pop into this reality, because it kind of explains it in the book that if they're existing in this space that's in this 3D reality, they're looking at the 2D reality as this like flat thing in front of them, and they can essentially go in and exit whenever they want. And when they go into that reality, they, of course, appear like they're a 2-dimensional object, but that's because you're not seeing them at the correct perspective. But if it's that easy that they're basically able to just stand out, stand in, stand out, stand in, I mean, I don't know, man. That seems to be one of the closest relations, for me at least, with this whole extraterrestrial phenomenon. I mean, you know, I'm always open to whatever theory anybody wants to potentially throw on it, but currently the one that's making the most sense to me is this 4th-dimensional reality concept.
Dude, that is crazy. Like, I'm going to have to read that book, because I've always thought about it where, and it hit me when I was younger. Like, my aunt really got me into like the whole multiple dimensions and alternate universes and stuff like that. Sweet.
Yeah, it's not too big of a read. It's a pretty short one.
Perfect.
Yeah, anybody out there that wants to check it out, Flatland, A Romance of Many Dimensions by Edwin A. Abbott. And you guys can find audiobooks for that on YouTube. I think they're like 2 hours long, so it'll be quick to easy breeze through too.
Oh, nice. But yeah, so like my aunt, she was really huge into like multiple universes and string theory and stuff like that. And she used to live in Iowa City, and we would go out there to see her. And one day I was probably 8 or 9, and I seen her, and she's like, "Oh, I gotta run inside." Like, we were getting ready to go somewhere, so we're all in the truck. And she's like, "Oh, I left my sunglasses. Hold on." And she ran inside, and she was in there for probably like 10, 15 minutes. And she came out, and she's like, "I don't know where they are." And, you know, everyone loses something, right? And she was sitting there, and she's like, "I always keep them right in one spot." And she was telling me, and I was like, "Well, how did you lose them, right?" And she's like, and the way she put it is, she's like, "I don't think I lost them. I think that they just disappeared." And I was like, "Well, you know, I'm like 8 or 9. And she's like, was trying to explain to me how she felt like there's different realities or like parallel universes where there's just like a thin screen or like a piece of paper, right? And whenever you do something in one world, there's another, like say I put my glasses down on the table here. Well, in the other world, they put them down over here. And there's just infinite universes, infinite options. And my aunt was like, well, what if every once in a while, those two pieces of paper, or those films or whatever, just slightly bump and touch each other. And now the glasses that were over here they're bumped and they disappear and they reappear in that reality. And it just trickles on down. And she's like, that's what I think happened. And she just chalked it up to that and just never lost it. Or never found the glasses and just left it at that. And I think it was like last Christmas, she was up here. And I mentioned that to her. And I was like, it's been like 30 years. But what you were talking about still hit me. And we were joking around about it. And she's like, oh, I'm a firm believer in that. She's like, and she used to teach at Iowa University or the University of Iowa. She's done all sorts of amazing things with her life. And she's like, yeah, we talk about it all the time. And we still run into instances where that happens. And then she started getting into more of like the different portals and stuff like that. And she actually moved out to Sedona. I mean, Sedona is just like a paranormal hotspot, and there's all sorts of like portals and everything going on out there. And she always talks about it. I'm like, man, I would love to just go out there and explore it and like firsthand witness some of this stuff.
That's one of those things, man, that as fascinated as I am with it, it's like I'm horrified to mess with it because I talked to like Trey Hudson, who works for or does stuff with the Meadow Project. I think he's like the founder of the Meadow Project, to be a little bit more exact. But they're talking about this like weird cube phenomenon that they've been dealing with this like cube that like appeared, and they ended up having people like walk through it, and they almost felt like they were like somewhere else, and like their perception shifted and everything. And they ended up having two of them ended up passing away actually from passing through this thing. And I believe that there was one of them that had some type of like radioactive some issue with like radiation or something like that coming from it. So I feel like it's one of those things that is, again, as fascinating as it is, I don't know if I'd want to mess with it just because of the fact that I don't think that our physical bodies as we currently exist are intended to actually pass through these things, because even getting into weird things like the Philadelphia experiment, if you're within this 4D reality, obviously like the laws of physics are going to work a little bit differently. Like, maybe things aren't necessarily as physical, so you are able to pass through things. It's this more like metaphysical type of reality, because that's what I was kind of saying, that it appears that you can see the inside of the lower dimensions as you continuously keep going up. But, the problem is if you shift back, or if your body isn't intended to function in that reality, then you get into stuff like the Philadelphia experiment, where as soon as you shift back to this third reality, all of a sudden now your arm is inside of this piece of wall, or your stomach's inside of this, or this thing's crossed and blended into you because you were existing in this plane that the physics don't necessarily work the same as our reality. Like, there's just so much that could potentially go wrong. Messing with ghosts is one thing. Messing with Sasquatch is one thing. Aliens, I guess that's a whole other story. But like, if I know that there's like a portal area and I could possibly pass through it, like, maybe I'll throw some rocks at it or something, man. But like, I don't know if I have the balls to actually try to even mess with that fourth reality type of stuff. As fascinated as I am with it, I'll research it for days, but I don't know if I want to do practical experiments on it.
I wouldn't mind. I would try, as long as I had like a backup plan, that like a rope around my waist and have you like a bunch of people on the other end just to pull me back out. Like, hey, I'll go in for 2 minutes and pull me right out. But
then the next thing you know, you get pulled out and that rope is attached inside of like your stomach or something as you get pulled back out of it or something like. Oh, man. Plus the other scary part is like, you can have as many precautions as you want, but when you're dealing with something that's outside of our realm of understanding, it doesn't mean that precaution is ever going to necessarily work. Like, even going into the CERN stuff, like one of my biggest arguments for that is, you may try to open up a microscopic wormhole, but who's to say that thing's not going to continuously keep expanding? And what would you even have to possibly even be able to stop that from happening? Like, even passing through some of these like natural wormholes or stargates, who knows what could potentially happen, where if it's existing in this certain spot and it's always existed in this certain spot and it hasn't been necessarily passed through, if the wrong person passes through it or you don't pass through it properly or something like that, is it possible that you could potentially like create a rift in this hole that will continuously keep expanding? Like, who knows what possibilities could happen? Like, I don't even think you could come up with enough safety protocols for messing with this stuff.
Oh God, no, not at all. And then you're messing around with something you have no idea. Like, okay, you might know. So CERN creates a microscopic black hole for a millionth of a second. But okay, so now they create it. What's from stopping it from just like instantaneously blowing up and just growing in mass volume? Like they're like, oh no, that won't happen. Well, how do you know? Like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of what happens on its what goes on at CERN, and especially even like the place down in Tennessee.
Oh, they're open about it. They say they're trying to open up a rift to another
I know.
reality. That's yeah. What's the name of that place? Brain farting on it. I've said this a million times.
Oh, I know.
Is it Anchorage or something like that? Anchorage, Tennessee, or something?
Oak Ridge.
Oak Ridge. That's it. Yep.
The Oak Ridge National yeah, that place.
Yeah, man, I'm good on all messing with all that type of stuff. I mean, even in general, man, like who knows what you could potentially even let through and how it would even potentially function in our reality. Because if you're dealing with like a fourth dimensional being and getting into even some partially biblical stuff, like the descriptions of angels definitely sound like some fourth dimensional beings. And every single time anybody has an interaction with an angel, it's not like they sit down in front of them and say, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. Like they fall down in fear because these things are horrifying. Like if that's the good things potentially coming from a 4D reality, who knows what the bad things are potentially coming from a 4D reality. Like if these angelic beings are looking out for us and people are still falling in fear as they're saying, don't fear me, I'm here to help. Like I'm good. I don't even know if my mind could fathom those things on the other side, man. Like, talk about a mental break. Like,
yeah, I mean, and then trying to describe it to somebody else. I say you do witness it, and it's just indescribable. You're not going to be able to describe it or put it into words, and it's just
breaks your brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show. So, also too, man, diving into some of your experiences, I know that you've had some dogman experiences, if I'm not mistaken, right, in Michigan?
Yes. So it could have been a dogman. It was one of those where I think it was, but I'd never seen anything. And what it was is, being an avid bow hunter and just out hunting all the time anyways, I was on a hunting trip and Southwest Michigan here. Sitting all day in the woods and seeing nothing. It's just a boring day and getting ready to get out. I'm getting down and you just hear this, like, we have owls out here and everyone who has like had the Bigfoot sightings and stuff, they're like, oh yeah, it sounded like an owl, but not really. Sounded like something trying to mimic an owl. I heard that, and that was my first thought. I was like, oh, like this could be it. Like this could be my moment. But then you just blow it off. And you're like, no, it can't be that. So walking out of the woods, it's probably a couple mile walk out of the woods to my truck, and I would hear the owl that just. Every time you'd hear it, it sounded off. And then it almost sounded like I was being paced out, but I never seen anything. And the entire, having this experience, it was one of those events where it's like, man, everything's kind of weird. You don't have that warm and fuzzy. You kind of feel weird about being in the woods.
Like that infrasound feeling, like you kind of get like that heavy, like dread, uncomfortable feeling.
Exactly, where you're like, something's not right here.
Did everything get silent too?
Oh yeah, but I always thought that, being an avid outdoorsman, being into this subject, like I would know it once I seen it. So it wasn't. I made the walk back. Nothing happens. I'm in my truck and I'm starting it, and I'm like. That was just so weird. And it's like, you look back on it. And at the time, I didn't notice that there was no sounds. Like there was no insects. There's no birds or anything like that. Usually you'll hear turkeys, going up to roost at night. You'll hear just all the natural noises of the forest. And this is October. So there's still bugs and leaves and squirrel. I mean, And walking out, there's just nothing. And it doesn't really hit you until afterwards. Like I'm in my truck getting ready to go home, and I'm like, man, that was so weird. And you just kind of like, it weighs heavy on you for a moment. And you're like, you almost want to go back out there. But at the same time, you're like, you know what? I'm not feeling it right now. I'm going to go home. And the rest of the night, you just had like you were saying with the infrasound, like that just heavy, almost sorrow on you. You're just like, man, like I'm in this slump. I don't know what's going on. And after a good night's sleep, I felt better the next day. And it took me a long time to hunt that area again. And that was probably 2 years ago now. And I was actually out there tonight hunting it. And you're out there and you always think about it. You're like, man, it could happen again. But that was my one and only Bigfoot dogman encounter thing right there.
Dude, it's so crazy to think that every single time you go out there, every human, man, you think that you're the alpha predator. In general, humans think they're the alpha predator of everything. But you get out there, no matter who it is, man, it doesn't matter. If you're out there hunting, like you're just a big clumsy fuck compared to everything else out in the woods, man. Because no matter how much like deer urine you put on yourself, no matter what you do to cover your scent, everything knows you're there. They clearly are not afraid of you. That's why you actually come across animals. That's why you hear insects. That's why you see all of these things. But then it takes a Sasquatch coming through the area or some of these other predators, and you realize that the bugs get silent. Every single thing gets silent. And then you realize that, again, you're not really the alpha predator out there. Like everybody is fully aware of you being there. You're just a clumsy, fumbling around fool compared to everything else out there. The true alpha predators are the ones that are making the bugs be silent. Like, in no world would a Sasquatch ever attack a bug, but that just shows how much dominance they truly have over the forest.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, it's going out there. Yeah, you're the apex predator. You're, I'm going to hunt whatever. When I was out west, I'm chasing black bear. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to do this. But then you get out there and you're like, man, especially in the Pacific Northwest, like those mountains are just completely different. And you're like, you know what? Like I can see why Bigfoot or Sasquatch can hide in these timbers and you'll never see them. I mean, and it's out there. It's a lot, the timber and the terrains are a lot different than out here, but still, like, I mean, every place you go, you're like, I could definitely see how a Bigfoot could live here and not be detected.
I mean, I always throw in, too, everybody wants to talk about food source. I mean, if these things are taking down deer, I mean, how many would they realistically need to take down to be able to feed a family for a week? Because, a lot of the time we look at food standards from the aspect of a human, which obviously we're way more gluttonous than we need to be. We eat a lot more food than we would ever actually need to out in nature. Like, I think they've said, like, people could probably go, out in nature eating, like, one meal a day and be more than fine sufficing for themselves. So we look at these areas and we think that, like, oh, yeah, Sasquatch couldn't survive out there because there's no way a population of humans could survive out there. And yes, these things are a lot bigger than us, but realistically, when you break it down, I feel like they would probably eat around the same amount of food that we would normally, but for themselves for that size. So if they end up taking down maybe like 2-3 deers a week, I bet you it's more than enough to feed their entire family unit, because as far as calories go and what they're doing, they're probably using the exact number. They're not just sitting around and just eating for fun like how humans would. So
you've never seen an overweight Sasquatch.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like they're eating exactly the calories that they need. And I'm sure that they retain calories a lot differently because, I mean, it seems like they're not necessarily nocturnal or awake during the day. They kind of do this thing where they're like active and then not active, almost like how a cat does, or like, even like a lion or like a panther or something like that. They do this thing where it like they lank around and like conserve energy so that they don't need as much calories, but when they need it, they kick in and they burst and they hunt and then they relax and they chill out the rest of the day. And it seems to be kind of the same with Sasquatch, that maybe their calorie intake isn't nearly as high because they do this thing where they're kind of lazy and don't really burn much calories, and then they burn calories to get some food, and then they go back to just being lazy and trying to burn as little calories as possible and taking constant like cat naps throughout the day.
Yeah, oh yeah, just like any apex predator, they're going to, they're not going to waste calories. They're not going to, just aimlessly burn calories to do it. They're going to be, direct on what they want to do. They're going to, take down you're saying Bigfoot. Bigfoot's going to take 2 deer. Yeah, 2 deer could probably feed a Bigfoot family of, for a couple days, but they're not going to waste anything either. And that was my biggest thing. And
with human family, you get 1 deer and it lasts you the winter. So, I mean, like, I don't see why 1 deer wouldn't last a Sasquatch family a couple days,
So I've put 3 in the freezer this year so far. But it's, no, like, I always felt like they're not going to waste anything. I feel like Bigfoot's going to be respectful for anything that it has to do. They're not going to, they're just trying to exist.
I feel like they'd go down to even like sucking out like bone marrow, for example, because I'm sure that's absolutely full of calories. It's probably extremely nutritious. And again, just going back in and not wasting any possible aspect of that deer because you need every single calorie you can get off of that thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I always love the fact, like when people debate it and they're like, well, how come we haven't found any bones or any skeleton remains? And it's like, how many millions of black bears are in the wild in the continental America? I mean, we have a huge population here in Michigan. How many people have ever gone out and found a bear skull or bear bones? Like, you don't. And what's unique about it is white-tailed deer will shed their antlers every year, right? So in theory, there should be hundreds of thousands of antlers all over the roads and in the woods, But once they shed it, the rodents, the squirrels, the rabbits, the mice, I mean, they all go to that because it's basically a creatine that they eat, and it's all, or keratin, that's what it is. And it helps the squirrels, the rabbits, helps all the rodents with their teeth, and it's nutrition for them.
I think porcupines and stuff even eat like the actual bone marrow out of stuff like purposely. Like they'll split bones in half and eat the marrow out of the inside of it. And I mean, going back to the Sasquatch thing, you bring in the intelligence factor, and who knows what the potential burial rites could be. I mean, it's not even just humans that do that. I mean, elephants will have ancestral graveyards that they'll bring their ancestors to and bury their own ancestors. So, if we're seeing it in things like elephants, we see it in things like humans, we could even potentially see things like this in dolphins. I don't know if people have ever actually looked into see if dolphins have some type of burial rites, considering they seem to be semi-intelligent. But, the reason you never come across a Sasquatch body is if they're always living in these little groups or tribes, there's not really very many that are off solo. If they simply just have some form of burial rites, you're never going to find a body.
Absolutely. And I mean, for me, I knew the Pacific Northwest was huge, but you don't appreciate the vastness until you're there. And you're like, okay, even if there was 100 of them within this one mountain range, like there's places out there where man has never even stepped foot. And how are we saying that? Oh no, there's no creatures out there. There's no Bigfoots out there.
Say, not to mention like caves, rock cliffs, different places that people have never been able to get up to. Like these things clearly have like immense strength. They have the metatarsal break on their feet, which means that they can climb a lot easier than we can. So, I mean, even just having like a little weird cliff face off the side of something in the middle of some vacant area of woods, like, if you see like a little cave, like how many people are actually going to end up figuring out how to get up there, especially if it's in some weird spot. But if you're a Sasquatch that has immense strength with possible climbing abilities. I mean, you could have like a little nook that you're hiding on the side of a cave, in a cave on the side of a mountain. Nobody ever finds you.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, look at mountain goats. Like they have hooves and they can climb sheer cliffs. Like what's stopping Bigfoot from doing something like that,
I mean, I've even thrown, if these things could potentially be living in caves, look at their strength compared to ours, just simply off of some of the boulders that people get chucked at them. I mean, how hard would it be for them to possibly have like a little like room or area or a house nook tucked into like a cave, and whenever they don't want people to come by, they just roll a boulder in front of the door and you walk right past it and never even notice it's there.
Absolutely.
And as a human, you'd never be able to move it, but 2 Sasquatches, boom, move it right over, no problem.
Yep, like a Fred Flintstone door, just roll out.
Exactly.
Roll back, done.
Because I mean, they're always when they were doing all these like old like mining expeditions and things, they're always coming across weird things inside these caves, even beyond like Sasquatch. I mean, you had all these weird like humanoid looking creatures. I mean, the Van Meter visitor ended up coming out of a cave. I mean, who knows what could potentially, how far, one, these tunnel systems could potentially go, and two, I mean, of course, if you have these endless potential places for coverage. I mean, looking at our ancestry, I mean, humans have always gone into caves until we started actually developing like housing and stuff. So, you know, why wouldn't something that seems to be of the same thinking process of us not do the same thing? You know, if there's already these pre-made shelters that draw no additional attention because they're naturally there, why wouldn't you take full advantage of that? Especially if they lead through these cavern systems. That's the other thing too. You know, you go into one of these cavern systems, and if something is potentially living in there, it might know 5 other ways out. So just because you come in the cave that it happens to live in doesn't mean you're actually going to come across it, because if it hears somebody coming in this way, it doesn't mean it's not going to come out 10 other different ways going out the back.
Exactly. Once we step foot in the forest, we're in their home, and they know it better than we do. And if they want to get out of somewhere, they're going to. Like,
that's what I'm saying, man. We're clumsy. Everything can smell us. I mean, simply just off of that, like everything that's existing out in nature can smell us and knows that we're coming from a mile away. So,
oh, absolutely.
And then I was recently talking about this on, I don't even remember if it was on this show or on Bizarre Encounters, but I was listening to this psychology podcast, and they were talking about this whole idea about like traumatic households, how a kid's brain, when they grow up in a traumatic household, that they'll develop to be in this fight or flight response. So they'll be very spatially aware, but they may not necessarily have the best book smart memory because their brain has always been trained to be in this fight or flight response. And then the opposite goes for the people that don't live in traumatic houses, that a lot of the time they're not very observant because they've never had to actually sit in their surroundings and have to be in that fight or flight response, but they have a lot better memory when it comes to like book smart things and whatever else. So if you kind of look at that transition into Sasquatch, that these things have always existed out in nature having this fight or flight response, their brain has adapted to that. So they're a lot more spatially aware than we could ever possibly comprehend. So the second you're 2 miles away from these things, dude, they already know that. You know, it's not that they're less intelligent than us. It's just that they developed in this fight or flight response where they're so spatially aware that we would never even be able to get to that point. And again, we're going to sit and say that they're less intelligent, but again, they're able to survive out there, and they know that we're coming from a mile away. So,
oh, and you know, a great example of that is look at your dog, right? If you're driving home from work, I know with me anyways, I would drive home from work, and my dog would know, you know, like 2 minutes before I would get home. Like before my kids would even see my truck, the dog was already pacing back and forth at the door. And it's just, they have that connection.
I've seen experiments where they'll do that at different times too. So it's not even just like a schedule that you come home at 4 o'clock every day or anything. It'll be like they've done experiments where somebody will come home at like random hours every day, and their dog still like knows somehow that they're about to be coming home. Like they have this like telepathic connection almost.
Absolutely. And we just look at a dog like it's a pet. There's you know, some people are like, oh yeah, this dog has this personality. And then others, I mean, there's labs that run tests on dogs, and we're saying that they're not smart animals, but yet how are they connected to us in this way, where they know that they know when we're going to be home before anyone else? What's stopping Bigfoot from having the same type of connection to just humans in general? So like, oh, we know that humans are coming into this area, but they know it, half an hour before we're there.
See, I think everybody and everything has this natural, I don't even want to say it's telepathy, but maybe kind of partially a good word to kind of put it, this natural like telepathy. But as humans, like we've pushed so far into technology where we stopped looking for these like natural signs of things. Like every animal seems to know when it's about to rain. Every single animal knows when there's about to be a bad storm. I feel like people have these same abilities, but it's a matter of we've like tuned ourselves away from them so far that we just don't hear them anymore, even though they're still there. Like we've spent so many generations just looking at the TV to see what the weather is, looking at our smartphones, Absolutely. That we lost this natural ability that we have that connects us all, that almost like kind of puts this natural feeling. And my best assumption for this is like gut feeling. I think we still have some residuals of this. This is why, like, when you go around somebody you've never met before and you just get this gut feeling that there's something off about them, and then later on you end up figuring out that they're this awful person. They're putting up this like fake facade. Like, I'm convinced that people still have this. It's just a matter of like, we just need to get reattuned to it, because that would completely explain what a gut feeling is. It's exactly what all of these animals are experiencing out in nature when they come across a person or they know it's about to rain. Same feeling. It's just, that's the one residual that we have left of that.
Oh, absolutely. And like that feeling that you get when you're being watched, right?
Yeah, like the Sixth Sense.
Yeah, exactly. So you did that, but now, like, for instance, last weekend I was getting new tires on my truck. I'm sitting at the tire shop and I'm looking around. I don't have my phone on me, but every single person there was on their phone, just like oblivious to anything going on. And you're just like, well, no wonder these people are all just, they're zombies and it's all disconnected. And they're not in tune with everything that's going around. That's why when I'm out in the woods, if I'm hiking or exploring or just hunting or whatever, like, my phone is nowhere near me and it's just completely disconnected. And I feel like you get more in tune, because once you're out there and you're away from that, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth signals coming in, like, you get more in tune with everything. And I go as far as in the summer, when I'm hiking, I'm typically barefoot. I mean, and it's just to be able to get grounded and back into like that natural state.
I do the same thing. That's just because I enjoy being a hillbilly, if I'm being totally honest with you.
Yeah, same here. I'm just trying to church it up a bit.
See, any opportunity I get during the summer to not wear shoes, I'm more than happy to take it.
Oh, dude, absolutely.
But, I mean, honestly, though, just getting grounded with nature and actually getting that connection back, though, ends up making a big difference, because when people actually learn to do that, that's when they start actually having these like really, really true experiences. And there's a huge faction of Sasquatch researchers that are like hellbound determined that they say that the best research you'll ever have is when you're disconnected from any type of equipment. And they're convinced that it's either like the smells or the buzzing or something that comes from it. But some of these guys, dude, have had some crazy experiences simply just going out there with like a flashlight and like their survival things and not bringing a camera and nothing.
Well, that's like, so you're going out, you're going to film to try to find Sasquatch or Bigfoot. You have all this camera gear and everything like that. And one day I was sitting here watching a documentary about it, and it hit me. I was like, wait a minute. We used to have working dogs in the Army that were able to smell out phones. So they would smell for the phones. And I'm like, but it's a phone, right? It doesn't have a scent. Each phone is different. How do the dogs know what to smell for? And it's the actual, what they train the dogs to do is sniff out the it's like the certain chemical that's in the camera lens of your phone. And they can smell that. So that's how the dogs are finding the phones. It's through a chemical in the camera lens. And then it's like, okay, well, now you're walking out into the woods with a film crew with a camera lens this size. And what's to say like Bigfoot can't smell that?
Not to mention infrared. I mean, you could literally be looking at giant red lasers that are just shooting through the woods, and Sasquatch is like, yeah, I'm going nowhere near that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, being in the military, you'd throw on your night vision and just everything lights up. You have IR lasers, strobes, flashlights, everything. But you take off your night vision and it's just dark. But you flip it on and everything's lit up. People are just pointing at different stuff. And you're like, okay, like, yeah, what if they can see in that IR spectrum? Then there's no hiding from them. They're going to see us coming way before we even notice they're out there.
Like I was saying, even developing in that fight or flight response, I mean, they could catch any like slight movement from like a half a mile away, because like who knows how potentially focused in their eyes could be. Who knows? I mean, already just assuming off of the fact that they're a lot bigger than us, their eyes are going to be a lot bigger, so their eyes are going to take in a lot more light, assumably, so they're going to have a lot more reflecting off the back and be able to see better anyways. So if you have that on top of the fact of, again, they might catch any slight little movement from a half a mile to a mile away, yeah, again, you're never going to catch up with these things unless you catch one by mistake because it's distracted over here doing something for 2 seconds, which a lot of the time it seems to be that, or it's the roadside crossings, because that's like that liminal space where there's no coverage. It's like, either you run, or if there's anything coming, it's going to see you. There's nowhere to hide. That's the only time that people ever come across these things, are in places where you really can't hide, or edges of fields where they think they're hidden for a second, but they might, actually be moving for 2 seconds.
Yep. It's never like, you very rarely hear of someone actually having eyes on a Bigfoot for a, sustained amount of time. It's always those quick glimpses, or you see them briefly, and then if they're throwing stuff at you or whatever, it's just quick flashes. And I think there's a documentary out there, like The Beautiful Glimpse of Bigfoot or something like that, or Flash of Beauty or something like that. And they just talk about, like, every time you see them, it's just in a quick glimpse or a flash.
It seems like a lot of the stuff they do is very like military tactic too. Like, one of my experiences that I had with these things was crossing through this creek where nobody was around at around 3 o'clock in the morning, and then coming back along the same line, and there was a giant footprint that was across my footprint. And I was talking to somebody about this, and they said that this used to be like a tactic during Vietnam that they used to do to trip up soldiers, where they would completely stay silent, they'd stalk a soldier, and they would purposely like put a footprint across their footprint so that the person would become over paranoid and end up slipping up, and then that's when they would come in and attack. But going off of what I was just trying to say, like these military tactics, I mean, you look at the whole like guerrilla warfare tactic that, you have this group that's in the center. You don't have a lot of numbers. You have maybe like 3 people and there's like 10 in the center. What's your best method in order to look like there's a big number of people that are actually surrounding that force? You all will throw things from different angles, and you constantly shift around and move. So it looks like there's bigger numbers. So it seems like, again, this is another one of these military tactics that Sasquatch is pulling off, where there might be potentially 2 of them, but if they're constantly moving and making different noises and throwing different things from different areas, it sounds like there's 10 of them out there, but there's only actually 2 of them. Like, again, just another weird military tactic these things happen to use.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, we can sit here and speculate what they are. I mean, I dream about it all the time, what they are. I go back and forth of, they're just a wild primate, or they're the missing link. I go back and forth all the time. And Wes says it best from Sasquatch Chronicles: we're not going to know until we have one tied up in a garage somewhere. Like, we don't know what it is, but for me, I always felt like at first it was just a giant primate. And then after listening to so many stories, and especially how like the orbs, like a lot of orbs are related with Bigfoot sightings. Like, for me, I feel now that Sasquatch is more of like almost like a little g god over a forest, or like over the forest lands. And that's why he can, or they can just like almost like blip in, or like pop in, be sighted real quick, vanish off, and with the orbs and everything like that. It was really hard for me to come up with that and truly believe that, because I don't want it to be that. I want it to be like that physical creature that's out there 24/7. But in my mind, I see it as almost like a little g god over, looking over the forest and the lands in general. Because they're not just spotted in the Pacific Northwest or in the mitten where we are, but like you have reports anywhere from Arizona, like the deserts of Arizona and Texas and New Mexico, out to Appalachia. They're out there, like they're everywhere. And I just think it's a residual little g god who watches over everything.
See, I've tossed so many different ideas, and I'm not necessarily in any specific camp, because it's just, again, it's such like a hard thing to answer that I don't want to ever, put all my put all my coins in one basket, or put all my eggs in one basket. But I definitely could see the whole idea that these things are something physical. Like, they're just something here that we haven't caught up with yet, maybe because the numbers are just dwindling down as time goes on, and they're starting to live in smaller groups, and they're starting to just learn to get more and more elusive to stay away from people as their numbers are starting to dwindle down. Or, I mean, you want to get into the weird aspect of things, going back into what I was saying about this like 4th dimensional reality. I don't think these Sasquatches are necessarily like conscious of the things that they do. Like, I think that they just have these natural abilities that we just haven't caught up to and understand yet. So if they are something that could potentially be like a fourth dimensional being, they could be like the basic, like just bottom of the barrel of like the fourth dimension, and them walking back and forth between these two different dimensions isn't something that they're doing like it's like some superpower, but it's just something that they're just doing because they're just these things walking around. And if you're looking at it from that perspective, I mean, it could totally make sense why these things kind of pop up, one, all over the world, two, how they seem to like almost be timeless, that they haven't changed through time, is because they could be existing in this fourth dimensional reality where like time doesn't exist. So they are literally like stepping in and out of time. And that's why these things have never actually changed. And it's not, again, that they're doing it out of like some superpower. It's just they're doing what they naturally do without really thinking about it too much. And the reason I'm saying that also, going into this whole like orb thing, there seems to be this like connection with orbs and like portals, that when the consciousness or whatever like the being is, or the entity that's transferring through, goes through a portal, going into even some of like Trey Hudson's stuff, where I was mentioning those people going through the cube, they talk about how like people will like show up as these like orbs and like shift around these different areas. Like, I wonder if like when you shift over, if like that's the means that the vessel has to like transport in order to go back and forth between these two different realities. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, the old connection with orbs going into UFOs, the paranormal, cryptids, anything, potentially be just the fact that these things are coming from a different dimension or another reality, and that's what they appear to look like as they're transferring back and forth through these different places. It's not that they're all the same thing, it's just that the means of how they get here is the same.
Oh, absolutely. No, I could definitely see that. Like, it's I mean, there's so much that we don't know that we can make up so much stuff about it. Like, oh, I think this is how it would be. But looking back at it, like the fourth dimension that you're talking about, like that just, I really want to read that book, because that would answer so much stuff, or so many questions, like, well, what about, why is Bigfoot doing this, or questions of orbs or anything like that. And that book just sounds like it would answer a lot of those questions and make it where, yeah, like you were saying, you can see the dimension lower than you. You just can't look up.
It gets into some weird philosophical stuff too towards the end, where like the third dimensional being tries to go into the second dimension and like tell everybody that the third dimension exists, but they all basically like suppress the information. So if you're looking at that as like a reflection of like our society, that, there might be some people up top that know that these fourth dimensional beings exist. They just kind of keep them a secret. And if these things pop up, they're like, no, you're crazy. You didn't really see what you think you saw. It could be potentially completely possible that all of these things are fourth dimensional, and they are fully aware of the fact that they are fourth dimensional, and they just pretend like, oh yeah, we don't know, like that, it doesn't make any sense, so we just don't even think about it. Like it's so weird when you actually read that book to see like the parallels. Like, I almost kind of feel like with a lot of these old books, dude, like these writers seem like they're aware of things that they were trying to portray this message of, but they couldn't just outright say it, so they kind of hide it in this like esoteric way throughout their book. And this is definitely one of them, that I feel like there's a lot of secrets that this guy who wrote the book may have been aware to, and he just tried to make it in a way that people would be able to understand in this book. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Hide the message, or hide the answer in plain sight.
Exactly. Because they even talk about like the gospel of the third dimension and stuff, and like they kind of bring it into this like religious idea towards the end of the book too. So like I said, it gets really, really weird. I recommend anybody that's really into this like whole fourth dimensional reality and trying to understand this concept, definitely should go and check that one out, because it's a really good spot to start to kind of get like the step down perspective to try to be able to understand the next one up. But again, even going into fourth dimensional reality, I mean, we can create all of these different metaphors for how we describe how it works, but I don't think our brains will ever be able to fully comprehend even how basic shapes would work. Because you get into, I don't know if you've dug into the whole like tesseract concept, but the tesseract is supposed to be a fourth dimensional object, and it's essentially the square inside of a square that's continuously shifting inside and outside, with like the inner square becoming like the outer square. So it's like we can make models for this stuff, but even the model like doesn't make any comprehensible sense within your mind.
Oh yeah, all of that stuff just fascinates me. And the square that you were just talking about, the tesseract square, like it's just, we can make computer models and everything for it, but to wrap your mind around the concept and the idea, it's so crazy to think about. And then to think about all the stuff that we don't know yet is just mind blowing.
And the potential of that just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. That's the even weirder part about it. Like who knows where that dimensional shift actually ends? Like, they theorize that there's only 11 dimensions, but we can't even imagine the next one up above us. Like who's to say that there's a cap of 11? Like I don't even know where they get that number at,
Where did that number 11 come from? They just pulled it out. Like, we're going to stop all the dimensions at 11 today.
Or, even breaking stuff down even smaller. We're looking at it as first dimension, second dimension, third dimension. But I almost kind of feel like it could potentially go even beyond negative for that. And once you get so far beyond that, you also can't comprehend it. I feel like it could be like this spectrum where it's not necessarily here's the base and then we're building up from here, but rather you're in this spot on the spectrum and you can kind of understand the next one up. You can understand maybe two down, but then once you get past that, it doesn't mean that there's not way more that exists. It just means that your brain can only comprehend, two shifts up or down in either direction.
Exactly.
Which gets even just the even crazier inevitable possibilities when you get into this dimensional stuff. That's just thinking about this stuff, man, will start to break your brain.
Oh, I know. It does too.
Hold on tight, guys. This is our last break, so stay tuned. And we are back to the show. So let's hop right in. Oh, well, man, I guess kind of starting to wrap up towards the end, and I would love to have you back on for another conversation. Maybe potentially even be able to get out on a cryptid adventure in the process of it and have some more back and forth that we can have as far as having an adventure together on that one. But I always like to end the show with some words of wisdom. So if there's any words of wisdom you might want to bestow on the listeners today, man, what might it be?
My words of wisdom are unplug from your phone, go out, get into the nature, go out and go on a hike, just unplug for just an hour a day, go out, see nature. It's winter now. Go out for a drive. It's beautiful, but just take that time to disconnect and don't let social media or anything like that ruin you and just take over your life. Just unplug, get out, reset, get grounded, and then you can get back into it.
Amen to that, man.
Everyone needs that off time for sure.
Dude, I've never hated my phone more than after I started a podcast. I love podcasting, don't get me wrong, but the social media aspect of it completely kills me. Even just talking to all of these different people on all the different effects that all of this social media and the algorithms and everything has on your brain. It's just made me want to push away from it the more knowledge that I have on it. But unfortunately, as society goes on, and these things are just becoming everybody's sidekick or companion, for lack of a better term. So at least take the opportunity, like you were saying, to just disconnect from it once in a while, because people have spent thousands of years not having any type of device. And then it's only been the last 20 years that people have had this whole idea of always having a phone in your pocket or always being attached to your device. So that already just shows right off of that our brains have not fully adapted for this yet. So considering that we are in a society where you cannot break away from phones, at least give yourself opportunities that you can break away from it for a while to be able to reset yourself so that you don't feel this constant anxious algorithmic pressure that all social media, phones, and electronics tend to be putting on people nowadays. Because, fear state, man, that's how you end up making customers out of people, and that's also how you push them into irrational decisions. So it's a good way to keep people, I guess, if you're one of the people in control.
Dude, I couldn't have said it any better.
And man, if anybody wanted to come and check out your new podcast, or they want to check out your other podcasts you've been working on for a while, where can people come and find you online? And also, just to throw this in there, since you're only 2 episodes deep, why don't you give people a little teaser on what those 2 episodes are about too, so they know what to come in and look for?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mysteries of the Timber is my podcast.
Great name, by the way.
Oh, well, thanks a lot, man. The first episode was, I went into a deep dive on Stephen Kubecki, who, local West Michigan man, disappeared in, I want to say it was, I gotta look bad, 1977, something like that. Disappeared from college. He went out into the Michigan Triangle, disappeared. I want to say it was 17 months later, he reappeared. So we go into that. Then the second episode was all about 3 different stories of hunters going missing, and some of their remains were found, others weren't. So we went into that and what it could have been. If you want to check us out, we're on everywhere podcasts are. Apple Music, we're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're on there. We go live every other Tuesday starting in January. I'm taking the holidays off to focus on other stuff.
As are most podcasts, it seems.
Yeah, right. But no, you can find us on Instagram. It's Whitetail Advantage Podcast is one of them. Mysteries in the Timber, or you can just look for me. It's Johnny Nitro is the name of it. Find me out there on Instagram. If you ever want to be a guest or talk about any paranormal or cryptid stuff, hit me up. I'm always down for it.
And of course, I will include all of those links down in the show description so everybody can find it quick and easy. And man, I appreciate you making the time to come on today. It was nice to actually get to have a screen-to-screen conversation with you. And I'm looking forward to getting out in the woods and having a Michigan cryptid adventure with you soon, man.
Oh, dude, absolutely, brother. I am so ready for it.
And we have to go normal hunting, too. That was another one we had on the list.
That's it. Turkey season this fall or this spring will go out for sure.
If any of you guys might be interested in supporting the show and all of the hard work behind it, don't forget you guys could always go and check out the Patreon with 2 tiers available, ad-free / early access and full access with 7-day free trials available if you guys want to see what it's all about. And you guys can also go and check out the Bizarre Reality Media merch store with t-shirts just $15.68 plus shipping, which equals out to about $20 after shipping, so about average for a t-shirt. And in the process, of course, you guys can support the little guy. And speaking of supporting the little guy, if you guys find any value in the show and you want this show to stick around for a very long time, one of the best ways to make sure that happens is to donate to the show directly. You guys can do so through PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. Any value you might find in the show, from 50 cents to whatever high amount you guys happen to choose. And of course, I will give you guys a big shout out on the show for whatever you guys happen to donate. And at some point coming here soon, I will make sure that we get some type of a point system for anybody that might be interested in supporting my work, so that you guys get a bit of a reward for it, of course, on the back end. But more information coming on that as we go farther into 2026. And the last way you guys can support the show is by going and checking out the affiliate links with some additional discounts and credits available for you guys. And again, more information on that is available down in the show description. And I know that times are tough out there, especially with the holidays just ending and the start of the new year. But if you guys might be interested in supporting the show in some other awesome ways, the absolute best ways that you guys can do that is by leaving a review or rating for the show anywhere you guys happen to listen to podcasts. And of course, if once I find it, I will read on the show and give you guys a massive shout out. And you guys can also go and follow the show on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. You guys can also share the show through word of mouth with anybody that you think might happen to enjoy the show, because grassroots support from listeners like you guys is exactly how shows like this grow. And you guys can also go and catch live shows and catch video content anywhere that you guys happen to find that kind of stuff. YouTube, Rumble, all that good stuff. And last but not least, you guys can also go and check out my other show, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin. If you guys are possibly looking for another show to get you guys through the work week, talking about a lot of the same stuff that we do on this show, but in a little bit of a different format, because it's usually us deep diving and less with the interviews. But again, might be something else to get you guys through the work week. And every single thing that I mentioned is all available in the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show's connected some dots in your own reality. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. Abductees taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey, with a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers.